Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our political segment, brought to you by Revere Securities, we're featuring Joe Pinion, a Republican Senatorial hopeful from Yonkers, New York, who's giving New York's current Senator Chuck Schumer a run for his money. New York State has not elected a Republican senator since Al D'Amato was reelected back in 1992. Chuck Schumer beat D'Amato in 1998 and has been New York senator since. Joe believes he can upstage, and upseat old Chuck. Joe is a former television opinion host and a political commentator turned politician. He's a good friend of the show. He's also designated as the New York Republican Party's official challenger for Chuck Schumer's U.S. Senate seat. He is the first Black man to run for U.S. Senate in New York. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hey, everyone. It's woodchuck season. I've got my axe, and we're getting ready to cleave Chuck Schumer from the herd.
I love it. So running for U.S. Senate in 2022 was the last thing on your mind, Joe. You had a job that you loved. The timing was not necessarily spectacular for you or your family, but you think in some ways that what was happening to your family, what was happening is what was happening all across the country, is what you said. And this left you feeling as if you had no choice but to run. What exactly was your family going through, and what did you mean by that?
Well, look, I think like many families, we experienced a great deal of loss during COVID. My grandmother, who helped raise me in the aftermath of my parents' divorce, we lost her. She lived 100 beautiful years, but in the end, when she took those final breaths, we were not able to be there with her because of the COVID mandates that locked down the nursing homes. The policies that we now know in many ways sometimes imperiled the seniors more than they helped them. And so for me, that was just one of the many reasons where I felt as if a nation founded to escape tyranny of a king, to ensure that we would have free people absent of the tyranny of government, needed to have a renewed sense of leadership recommitted to those founding principles. And when you look at the issues here at home and you look at the issues abroad, that lack of stewardship that is connected to our founding principles is everywhere. A southern border crisis that is killing people every single day. We have enough fentanyl crossing our southern border to kill every man, woman, and child that calls this nation home. The leading cause of death now for people aged 18 to 45 is fentanyl, and we don't make any of it here. It's Chinese cartels and Mexican cartels. So just one of the many issues that has been left unaddressed by Chuck Schumer after 42 years in D.C., and it's time for us to send a message. We don't want his kind of leadership anymore.
Amen. So, Joe, you're running on a platform of eliminating disparities in rural healthcare, increasing literacy rates, and enshrining reading as a basic human right, enshrining school choice as law across the nation, and stopping the influx, like you've just said, of drugs and fentanyl in America coming through our borders. Why are these issues at your fighting core, specifically these issues?
Well, look, you cannot save what you don't love. And if you don't protect what you love, it will soon perish. You have to have a belief in the sovereignty of this nation if we're going to maintain a nation. That means we have to have a legal immigration process. That means we can't have people swimming through the Rio Grande and saying that they have the right to all that is befitting an American. At the end of the day, we have children being trafficked for sex across our southern border because the people that lead this nation have debased our nation as sovereignty. We have a crisis here with our own economy because they debased the American dollar, printed $6 trillion, even though most economists told them not to. And now we have inflation run rampant, seniors looking for help wanted ads in the local paper because their Social Security check does not go as far. We have people paying $15 for a pack of chicken cutlets, $6 for a gallon of milk. Diesel is approaching in on $6 itself. So yes, they can lower the cost of gas by depleting the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but that's probably a pretty bad thing to do when the president is saying that we are the closest we've ever been to a nuclear Armageddon as it relates to Russia. So again, their eye is not on the ball of protecting Americans. Their eye is on the prize of winning elections. And we cannot have American leadership that thinks the politics matters more than the people. All of these things are why I'm in this race. The schools that are failing our children, the list goes on. But the legacy is of abject failure. And the fact that Chuck Schumer wants to pin the blame on the elephant just shows you that he is no longer fit to be the senior senator from this great state.
Let's piggyback off of what you just said. So Schumer is bringing a "look what I've done for you lately" argument to his bid for this fifth term. He says he's brought home the bacon and then some, $1.59 for every dollar New Yorkers sent to Washington last year. He says his CHIPS Act helped bring microchip maker Micron to the Syracuse area. And he says that this is just the start. After 6 years as the Senate's top Democrat, he promises to keep doing what he's been doing if reelected. What do you say to this?
I say that it is a bunch of hocus pocus. Yes, my grandfather told me there's no such thing as a free lunch, and everything that Chuck Schumer has done for us comes with strings attached. For the first time in the history of his tenure, New York finally got more money back than we sent to D.C. That seems like a good thing until you realize most states got more money than they sent to D.C. because we printed more money than we'd ever printed in the history of our republic. $6 trillion we printed. And what was the down payment for the extra 59 cents on the dollar that we got? It is now the $6 for the milk that I mentioned. It is now the shrinking Social Security checks that I mentioned. So we are paying a high cost for the extra 59 cents. And I think at the end of the day, he wants to talk about the CHIPS Act. That's great. I would be the first person dancing in the streets if we get $100 billion in investment coming to New York State. But that investment is not promised. That is the projection. The same way he loves to talk about the 50,000 jobs from the CHIPS Act that's going to be coming to New York and glosses over the fact that it's only 9,000 jobs. The 50,000 jobs are the jobs we hope the initial 9,000 jobs create. And to be clear, not a single one of those jobs will be created in time for Election Day. So call me crazy, but when a man shows up 60 days before Election Day saying, give me 6 more years and I'll bring you 50,000 jobs after you reelect me, the question must be asked, where were you when 1 million of our friends and neighbors fled this state over your last tenure here as United States Senate? We lead the nation in outward migration because the jobs that needed to be here to ensure our neighbors wouldn't leave never showed up. He is now the senator that has presided over the greatest exodus of citizens in the history of our state. That is his legacy. He wants to put lipstick on a pig all he wants, but it's the people here in New York that can't find the jobs. It's the people here in New York that can't afford to keep the house they made a home because he is the one who has been in the pocket of Wall Street. He is the one who gets more money from the commercial banks that he allowed to become too big to fail and then allowed to become bigger after the financial collapse. He is the one. He's the decider. He's the
boy, you are fired up.
And he doesn't get anything done for us.
And you know your facts. You know your facts for sure. And that's, you're leading with great accuracy because you are not just talking about what you believe. You're talking about hard, solid core facts that don't lie, numbers that don't lie. So, Joe, you compared Chuck Schumer with George Wallace, the famous racist Alabama governor who literally stood in a doorway at the University of Alabama to prevent Black students from entering. As the Buffalo News quoted you, is this because Schumer isn't pushing charter schools? What was this about?
For me, it is quite clear that you don't have to put on a Klan hood to be the greatest impediment to progress for civil rights in America in the 21st century world. I made the comparison to shock and awe, and we should be shocked and astonished by the fact that 60% of all children of all colors and all creed aren't reading at grade level here in New York State. But as you drill down for Black and brown students, it is abysmal. We just found out in New York City, 70% of the Black students failed the math exam. And what was the outcry? There was none. It was people patting themselves on the back, talking about the tremendous job they did to help stem the learning loss in the midst of COVID. But it's not just COVID. It happens every day. Down in Baltimore, 75% of the high school students, mostly minorities, are reading at an elementary school level. What kind of future do you have when the schools that our tax dollars pay for are sending you out into the world devoid of the skill set you need to be a successful individual? And then we know that it is a lack of education that drives the poverty. It is the poverty that drives the crime. That is the 3-strand cord of despair that is crippling the American dream for Black people in a 21st century world. It is the civil rights issue of our time. This is the Jim Crow of the 21st century, and any man that stands in the way of the documented, data-driven best practices that allow us to remedy historic inequality for Black and brown people is, from my perspective, the modern-day George Wallace, whether you want to think of him as a racist or not. On some basic level, it doesn't matter, because you have racism in a society where there is no racist present. And the only people that love to obsess over who is a racist and who is not a racist are the same people who want you to be distracted from the fact that we have racist practices that are strangling our communities day after day after day.
Preach, brother, preach. You said it. All right, we have about 2 minutes left. Last question here. So you have been quoted to say that you have a very difficult time telling people that they can't go and die on behalf of this country, but that they can buy a weapon. So do you support barring people under age 21 from owning semi-automatic rifles? Because at this point right now, we have statistics that on average, well over 1,000 people die and 3,000 people are wounded by guns in New York. And New York has the 48th highest rate of gun violence in the U.S. What do you say to this?
So I'm in the interest of passing laws that save lives. Anytime you can point to a problem and say that if we pass this law, we will solve that problem, I'm all for it. The problem is that the Democrats in this state in particular are obsessed with trying to pass laws they know won't actually solve the problem or prevent the crime that they're using as the catalyst to pass the law. So for me, yes, I think that we have to have a broad conversation about when does adulthood begin? And that's not just for guns, it's for a great many things. Don't tell me that you can say my 16-year-old needs a note from a parent to have Advil, but also that same school has the right to not tell the parent if that child wants to change their gender. Don't tell me that this person who is 18 years old can sign up to die for our country, but also because it's politically expedient, we can deny them a constitutional right to buy a weapon. I just think that, again, whatever we're going to do, we have to have consistency. Society has to work in a way that is blind. What's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. And I think that we just need to have a consistent approach to policy that is not dependent on what is politically expedient for the day. So for me, if you look at Uvalde in particular, all those children that were died, that we should not be using the dead children as a catalyst to make political hay. Chuck Schumer put forth $300 million to secure our schools. Pop quiz, I tell people all the time, my hometown in Yonkers is the third largest city in New York State. It's one of the 120 largest cities in the country. And the price tag to fix our schools alone, 27,000 of them, is $2 billion. So don't tell me you're serious about protecting our kids across the country when you allocate $300 million to do it while you're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and then want to try to tell me that I'm the crazy person for saying that your plan to help kids be safe is really a con to help you stay elected.
Oh, well, there you go. Joe, listen, you definitely have me convinced. I love your approach to these to some of the more polarizing issues that we're facing. You are very level-headed. Your grandmother did a great job, and she's definitely proud from wherever she's watching you. So thank you so much for coming on. I wish you the best of luck. November 8th is just a few days away, guys. So make sure you get out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote, but make sure you cast a vote. Your voice counts. Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much. JoePinion.com. Check us out. Vote like your state depends on it November 8th, because it assuredly does.
There you go. Guys, that was Joe Pinion. Definitely check him out. Go directly to his website. Donate, vote, JoePinion.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was our PoliticGal segment brought to you by Revere Securities. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to RevereSecurities.com.